All right. So let's make a new sample repository and CD into it. And you can use the, while I'm like talking, feel free to ask questions. Right, we're going through a review. Like this is a good time for you to like check your understanding. Feel free to put stuff in the chat or just shout it out, or use the hand raise feature. Any of that's fine. Okay, so we created kind of like all we have right now is just a sample folder, right? There's like nothing inside. If we want to turn this into a GitHub repository, give me 1 second. Right, what we can do is just do like git init, right? And now you can see this initialized an empty repository inside this sample repository folder, right? It created this .git folder. So now if I do ls-a, we see the .git. And now you can start, we can type git status. There won't really be anything to show. We can create a file, touch, index.py, open up the text editor, like def intro, and then we can say like hello world. And then let's do another file, main.py, def run, right? And then just put paths under here. Okay, so now kind of like what's the next thing I would probably do if I'm working with Git is I'm always typing git status the same way that like it's almost like typing ls, right, in bash, just like Git oriented. You can say, okay, so these are untracked, meaning they have not yet, or like ever, these files have not been added to the Git repository. We mentioned before that, in terms of what we may want to put into a commit is like a feature or a bug, like adding user value, what we talked about like as a user story, right? So if say we're working on this like intro feature and this is all we want to place in our first commit, we can specify, okay, this is about to go into my commit. And the first thing for this is going to be git add. And you can either, if you want to put all the files, right, that's git add dot. If you want to specify just a specific file, that's git add and then the name of the file. So in this case, I'll be index.py. And this will stage this file, meaning that this is the one file that's essentially on deck to be committed. So let's type git status, and we should ideally see that. So you can see, okay, cool, this is the change to be committed. We can see that if I want to unstage it, I can do this git remove -- cached, the name of the file. But this is staged, and this is still untracked. So then now that this is staged, like what's the next step, right? Is probably git commit -m, right? And then like some sort of commit message along with it. So we can do something like, add the intro feature. All right. And now if I look, what's the next thing I'll do? I want to see my results. So what's the result of this commit is that, okay, how do I check that I actually made a commit? I'll do git log, right? If I type git log, you can see that here was this commit. It was made by me, right, a few seconds ago. And same thing, like now if I want to actually go a little bit deeper into this, we can do git show. Each commit has like an ID that's just generated for you. So if you want to see the, like here there's only one, and by default I can do git show and it will display the content of the most recent commit. Right, so here you can see I changed this file, I added a couple lines to it. But you can also, here's the git log. You can also do git show. Say there was 2 commits in the past, and I want to show just one of them. Show like specify it. You can put in. This is called the SHA. It's like the ID, but it's called the SHA, the SHA. So you can put that in there as well if you want to see. Okay, what was this commit? What was it about? Git show and then the SHA. Okay, questions about any of that material? right? We initialized the repository. We added a file to staging, right, with git add. We made the commit with git commit -m. Then we did git log, right, to see all the commits. And then finally we did git show. Okay, so for the
Jeff,
yeah,
in Git log, it shows head. What does that mean, really, head?
head is, I believe this is like the most recent commit. Head is, yeah, it's like the most recent commit, like the top. If you imagine like this is a sequence, right? Your repository is essentially a sequence of commit messages. This is the top of it. All right. And now what can we do next? Let's kind of, for the next component, let's say we're going to add a new feature, and let's do this kind of the way we should, right? So if you type git branch -a, we're on the main branch. And as we know, we're never really supposed to code directly on the main branch. We did, but that was a mistake. So instead, what we should do is when we want to add a new feature, we should first create a new feature branch, right? And then make the commit on that feature branch. And then finally merge that feature branch, merge the new commit of that feature branch into the main branch. So let's do that. So first step is make a new branch. So I'll do git checkout, then -b, and the name of the branch. So let's call this like feature 2. And you can see it tells you we just switched to a new branch called feature 2. I always like to I always like to see this, so I'll do git branch -a, and you can see I have these two branches now, and it's indicating that I'm on this branch, feature 2. Notice that even though we're on this branch, we inherit all of the commits that from the branch we deviated from, we spun off of. So that means that we should get all the commits here. So even though we're on this feature branch, if I look at git log, right, we see that we still have this add intro feature commit. So the next thing then is if we look at git status, we can see this is the one file we kind of have not yet added. We can if I want to see, we can add something new, def run, and then, I don't know, display, something like that. All right. So if I want to, oh no, I can't actually show a diff. I was going to say, if I wanted to see the changes I've made, I could do git diff, the changes I've made that have not yet been added. But you can't do that yet because it doesn't have anything to compare this file to. It can't compare this against like a previous version of the file because no previous version is tracked yet by Git. So if you do git diff, you're not going to see anything. So let's just first make a commit and then we'll play around with git diff. All right, so what do I want to do? I'll do git status. We can see this is the only thing we have not yet added. Let's add it. In this case, I can do git add dot, right? Add all of the files, basically add all the changes. And now if I look at git status, we'll see that this file is ready to be, is in staging. Right, now I do git commit, -n, we'll say like add, run, and display. Let me show you one other way to do this. Instead of doing git commit -m, I kind of like this better. You can do -v. And you see this? This is kind of taking you to Vim, which is like a text editor in the browser. And what this is, the V stands for visual. Git commit -v stands for visual. And what this allows you to do is instead of just typing your commit message inside those quotation marks, you can use like multi-line commit messages. So you can say like adding, feature 2 involving the run and display, right? And then you can put return. Oftentimes, What I love doing is if you have, can I show you anything? Hold on, give me stop sharing for 1 second. Okay, let's say, I'll start sharing again. Let's say you have like a Trello board. And so if you're like, here's everything about, so a manager, maybe they write down and they say, hey, I want you to build feature 2. And the manager, meaning like the product manager is like, we need to display results to the user. And maybe there's some sort of back and forth. Generally, this card also gets some sort of like ID associated with it. That's just generated by like Trello or whatever this equivalent tool that you're using is. Or you can just put a link to it. Like that also works. So in the commit message, you can say like this finishes, like what the work that we did here finishes this description, what was asked of me here. Why is that very useful? Because then back in time, you can look at the commit and also see, a link to the related material, like all the context as to why we were doing this thing. Very useful in my view. All right, so now you can do, this is, in order to get out of this, so this is Vim. In order to type in Vim, you have to press the letter I, which stands for insert mode, and then you can type stuff. In order to stop typing, you can press the escape key. Now notice if I type stuff, actually, it did kind of still work. But you press the escape key, and now notice when I press colon, the colon shows up down here, and I'm going to write WQ. This is all kind of bonus. And WQ stands for write, meaning save, WRITE, and then quit. So write this file, and then quit. And now, this is now, if we look at the git log, this is kind of, like a multi-line commit message where we're able to put a little bit more context about it. So the way that I did this was I did git commit -v, right? And that opened this up in Vim. And then I did, press the letter I to start typing, and then double escape, and then colon WQ, right? And I put a link to the feature that we're closing. Like I said, it's kind of bonus, but it is nice to do. All right. So we're on this branch, git log. We have 2 commits. Remember, if I want to show like this intro feature, even though it wasn't if I want to show the most recent commit, I can do git show. If I want to show something further back in time, I can do git show followed by the SHA. So I'm not displaying this commit, but I am displaying this one, right? And this is my first commit, right? So I'm just git show followed by the SHA. All right, now that we made this change, let's check out the main branch, right? Because I want to merge these changes that are on this branch, on this current feature branch, over to the main branch. So I'm on feature 2. I'm going to do git checkout, and I could do git checkout main, or I can also do git checkout hyphen. Hyphen is just the branch you were previously on. Like it's basically like the back button in your browser. Okay, so I do git checkout hyphen. That will also take me to the main branch. Okay, it's just a shorthand. And now I can say git branch -a, just make sure I'm on the correct branch. Notice if I log while I'm on this branch, it will not have the commit I made in feature 2. So you can see it only has one commit. It does not have, this material. So what do I do next? If I want to get that commit onto this branch, I need to do git merge feature 2. Okay? And that will place the most recent commit on top. And now it seems like it did do that. Let's take a look. We'll do git log. And now you can see we have both of these commits here. Okay, so that was branches, right? We created a new branch with git checkout -b. The git checkout -b followed by the name of the branch. We looked at the branches by doing git branch -a. So we saw our branches. And then finally we made, commit on that branch, and then we merged the changes into my main branch by doing git merge. Okay, followed by the name of the branch. Questions about that?
You need to be in the branch to do the merging, right? Like git merge, you need to be in main branch.
Right. You want to so kind of like the path is you make these, you're making commits. Say on our main branch we have 2 commits. Then I check out a new feature branch. I make a commit on the feature branch. In order to merge the feature branch, I have to first check out the main branch. So you're on the main branch, and then you merge. From the main branch, you merge the feature branch onto the main branch. So you have to be on the main branch when you're merging.
Jeff, are you sharing his blank screen for me?
Oh, you guys all see a black screen?
Blank, white screen.
It's white.
Yeah. It's the whiteboard. I don't know. Can you see the blue mark that you put on the screen?
It's not moving. It's just a single line. I don't know if you're drawing.
Oh, I was drawing.
Got it.
You guys don't see this? Little.
Okay, now we see it.
Let me try it again. So, what I was trying to display here is we have, say your main branch has 2 commits on it, and you want to add a new feature. So the first thing you do is you will check out a new branch. This will be, say, this is our feature branch for our second feature. You'll add a new commit on that feature branch. The next thing you'll do is you'll check out the main branch, meaning you'll move over to the main branch. This main branch will be lacking this new feature. So from the main branch, you'll need to git merge feature 2 onto the main branch, at which point this commit will be moved over. Yeah?
Sure, Jeff.
Mm-hmm. Let me see this. There's other questions. Git merge branch into the current branch. That's correct. So from the main branch, merge my feature branch over into the main branch. Yeah, and I remember being confused by that, like 6 months into being a software engineer. Okay, what's next? All right, GitHub. Let me create a new repository. I think.
Jeff, before you move, I have one question. So, sometime you get the what is it called? Conflict error.
Yeah, we haven't. Yeah. We haven't gotten to that.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
If I merged one branch, like the wrong branch, into the other branch, if I did it the wrong way, would there be a way to undo that?
Well, wouldn't actually. Let me show you. So if you think about it, okay. So let's say we're here. We have. So let's look at what branch I'm on. Git main. Okay, let's say. So one, now if I say git checkout feature 2, I guess I can't autocomplete, right? So if you merge main onto feature 2, nothing will happen because it already has all the commits of the main branch. So if I do git merge main, see it says already up to date. However, let's say we add something from feature 2 and we kind of like jump the gun and merge it onto the main branch. Let's try to do that. So let's make a change. Okay, and now let's do git status. Git add. You can do everything with Git, by the way. Like you can do everything. All right. So git commit, adding a mistake. Okay. So right now.
What's the minus capital A?
Oh, good question. I do this by habit. I'm not even realizing I'm doing it. The capital A is, say you have deleted files as part of the changes that you've made. By default, I think the dot will not include those deleted files when it adds the changes. However, I generally like to. Like, I want the files I'm deleting to actually be deleted. So what I type is git add dash capital A, which will include in my revisions, include in the commit, it will successfully delete any files that I have deleted in the code. For what dot, I believe, will not do that. So that's what I'm always typing. Okay. So now we've made this commit.
I'm sorry, Jeff. I was just on mute asking. So delete from where? Just from this directory?
Let's say I delete. Let's say it. So let's say I delete index.py. All right, and now I'll do. Let's see my changes. We see I've deleted index.py. And now let's see. If I do git add dot, and now I type in git status. Oh, it does work. So it seems to be equivalent now. I thought that maybe git add would not include the deleted the deletions, but it seems like it does. So I think so far, to my knowledge, there is no difference between the two commands. Git add -a and git add dot both seem to be successful in actually removing the file. So just a fun historical tip thing I'm doing.
But if you have already deleted it, right? How do you get rid of this message? So if
I'm deleting it now, right? I need to store every change.
But you already deleted it, right? So
Yeah,
this
but
file is already got deleted.
Yeah, but if you don't, we're in the world of Git. So if you don't add this change to Git, it's not going to be tracking it, right? Every change you make, you need to say, I'm locking this in, right? I'm saving it. So now we can, make the commit message, deleting index. So let's look at my log. So we can see we added a mistake. I want to see where this was. So I'm going to do git show. And this was in my main.py. And then the next thing we did after that was we deleted index. Again, let's do git show. And this deleted the index file. So we still have the main.py file that has the mistake. Now we'll go back. So this is right now we're on the feature branch. Let's check out the main branch. I can do that again with the hyphen, right? Is like my back button. So I'm on the main branch now. Now you can, if you look at it, we have just these two things, but we do not have, I can actually look at the other branch, like almost ls, the other branch, by doing git log feature 2. So I'm just gonna like look at the log of this feature 2. So we don't have the deleting of we don't have these two commits on my main branch. So I'm still on my main branch. We don't have these two commits. So what should we do? We can merge them. So I'm going to merge from my main branch. I'll merge. I always forget the name of the branch. Sorry. Git merge feature 2. Okay. So now if you look at it, git log -2 just so that we have this one. Let's say this is extra. Like I don't like the fact. Notice by the way, once I merged it in here, the index.py file is disappearing. We can undo this, I believe, by doing git reset. Remember head? I think the way you do this is head is the most recent commit, and it's like one. You want to go back in time to one before it, so it's like head caret. And now, notice once I did that, let's type code dot again. That's a mistake. It says unstaged changes, deleted index. Let's type git status. changes not stated for commit. Oh, I thought git restore file to discard the changes. So I'm kind of I don't totally understand what's going on, but I'm kind of in this space where it feels like it can restore this index.py. So this just ended up being a hard example, and now index.py is back. So this was a little tricky, I think, because it involved a deletion. But basically, William, to get to your question, what I did to try to undo a commit was git reset head caret. Again, like this is getting a little bit more advanced. I don't want to. I'm gonna like stop taking going down new paths with this stuff because there's just so much to get that we can learn about.
So we can only do the last.
No, you can go back.
You can go back and there's like
you can go back however far you want.
so with the commit ID or how we can do it, like git reset.
Yeah, you can do it with the SHA. You can also check out just the same way you check out a branch. You can check out a branch at a commit, like create a new branch essentially at a commit. It's like kind of wild. You can do anything. This is why I said it's kind of like time travel. Like you get to go back in time with your changes to your code base. But I would encourage you. I would rather you guys Google that stuff rather than me like confuse people. All right, let's
Jeff,
move.
two conceptual level question. So developers do when after creating the branch, developers checking their code in that branch. And do we deploy code into your production or QA from that branch, or do you merge it first and then deploy? What is typical process in development cycle?
Okay, let me think about how that would fit in. Essentially, what you'll do is generally there will be really what you're coding on oftentimes is like the dev branch. Okay. And then, or let me think about this. Yeah, you can be coding like on like kind of like the main, we can call this like the main branch is fine. But this is really like what the developers are kind of coding on. And then you'll develop like a feature branch.
Jeff, I think it's frozen again.
It's frozen again?
Yeah.
Let's see if this works any better. You guys see the line being drawn? Okay. All right. So let's say you're making commits on like the main branch. Okay. This is like what like the dev team is essentially working on. Okay. And so now I get a new task. I spin off. I create a couple of new commits on my feature branch. Then I merge the feature branch in. Okay. And at this point, now I have on the dev branch, on the branch that developers are working on, there are 2 new commits. So what does that mean? That means before I merge, I better have written tests for my code, and I better have run everybody else's tests, which by the way can take like 20 minutes, and sometimes you like use an outside tool to speed it up because it's annoying to wait 20 minutes. So okay, after all the tests pass, then you merge into the main branch. Now all the rest of the dev team has those changes that you made. That does not mean that the production code base has the changes that you have made. So for that to happen, what you'll do...
Jeff, one sec.
Yeah.
Jeff, one sec. So you says dev branch. This is the main branch, not the dev branch.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying this is the branch that like developers are using. Right? So I'm just saying we can just call it
something split from the main branch.
No, this you can call this the main. We can call this the main branch, right? Like different teams may call this stuff different names, but we'll call this for our purposes the main branch. All right, so we have our feature branch, we merge the changes into the main branch. At this point now, we'll like close the story on Trello. Like we'll go to Trello. Let's say it's here. I'll share my screen. We'll go to Trello and we'll, tell the product manager or whoever that we are done our story. Right? We'll move this story into like a queue that says it's completed. So from here, what will happen is the product manager will look at these changes. Will play around with like the code, meaning like the application that has your changes, and kind of say whether or not this is approved. Like this is looking good. The branch, maybe like at the end of the day or every other day, at this point, we can have this part of the code, we can move this to the QA branch. So now QA is, say, getting the most recent changes. All right? And what QA is doing, this is like quality control, like they're testing. What they're doing is putting in all weird inputs into the application. Lots of times, if this is like a web development application, they're trying different scenarios. Lots of times they're writing their own tests and making sure that any changes you made will pass any of the tests that they write. And they may stay there for like a few days. All right? When they have approved that, then we can kind of take those changes and move them to the production branch. All right, so now all your changes, including changes that other developers have made, will go to like the production branch. And at this point, I shouldn't even say that. At this point, so once this is kind of approved, I guess it can go to like the production branch. We'll just leave it there. It can be different teams will have different levels of complication around this. So the production branch is like the users, right? The end users are finally getting these changes there. Generally, this may only happen like once a week, right? So at this point, different stakeholders, internal in the company, like a product manager, a project manager, the QA team, all will have been playing around with the code, sign off, and can then push it to production. All right? And, at that point, not only have you written all the tests, made sure things have passed, right, that all of the tests have passed, but then QA has played around with things, right, and they've sat kind of in the queue or sat waiting to be moved to production for a period of time, and maybe on Friday or Thursday, we'll actually move the changes over to production. I'm honestly not like super prepared to talk about like dev workflow, right now, so I don't want to go too far into it. But that's the general idea.
Sure, and sometimes you hear the term future commits not allowed, locked in the branch. So does lock the branch manually, or is it like a?
Well, maybe there's they're moving that into the production for now. Like okay, for Thursday we're moving things to production. If you add new commits after that, right? It's not going to go into production for this week, something like that. Sorry, Pankaj. Yeah, Pankaj, I want to move into GitHub now.
Okay.
So let's do that. All right. So here we have, let's create like our sample repository, right? And we'll do this. So this is kind of what we need to do. Remember, the main point here is that we need an address, right? Like with GitHub, you're given a location essentially, right? Where we can push the code to, where we can send this code to. So what we're doing here, this is kind of like the key line. We've already initialized a repository. We've already added something to staging. We've made our first commit. Our branches, this is the to rename the branch main, but we already have a branch called main, so we're good, right? Now the next thing we need to do is say, where are we going? We need to tell our local repository, meaning the repository that lives on our laptop, where we're going to push our code to. So I'm always typing git status. I'm going to type git log. All right, so here we have these most recent commits. Let's do git branch -a. I just want to make sure what branch I'm on the main branch. All right, you can see I'm like pretty careful about this. And now at this point, I can do git remote add origin. So basically I'm going to set this word origin equal to this location, to this. It's really just like text. Okay. So if I do git remote -v, now I can see that. I can see where did I set, what did I assign this word origin to? All right, I assigned it here. The next thing for me to do is to push a branch. So I want to push the main branch up to a branch called main here. So I can type git push origin, so push to this location, right? Over to main, right? And now if I want to be real explicit, I'll say I want to push the local main branch to a branch remotely called main. Notice I'm separating that with a colon. But by default, Git will assume you're doing that. So I can just say git push origin main, and it breaks. This is because I need to give myself permission to it. So all I'll do in order to do this is go to settings. So the issue is that I'm logged in as Jeff Katsy, which is like my personal GitHub name, and I'm trying to push to this Jigsaw Labs student repository. So I just signed in, and then I'm gonna add a person. So the way I did that was I went to settings, and then I got to collaborators, okay? And now you can go to add people, and I'll put Jeff Katsy. And then I think this is fine to show you. I'll just go to, I should be able to copy this invite, and I'll just copy it over here. And you see this, I just literally copied it. I also got an email, and I just click accept invitation. Once I did this, now I should be able to successfully push. So you can see I'm pushing. This is saying I'm pushing my local, the branch on my laptop main over to GitHub's, a branch on GitHub called main. So you can see this is that branch on GitHub called main. Okay? You can push your, feature branches over as well. So I can check out dash, and now I'm on the feature 2. And I can push, it's fine. I can push feature 2, git push origin, sorry. Git push over to this address, right? Origin stands for this address to feature 2. And this is pushing my local feature 2 over to GitHub feature 2. So now, if you look, I just have to refresh, but if you look, this is the feature 2 branch. So you can push your, while you're coding, you can save your changes to the cloud as well. All right. Okay. In order to like push up the changes, you may have to add I think you probably will have to add an SSH key. What that is, just to like explain it briefly, is the way these technologies work is that it's kind of it's like a real if you imagine like a lock and key on your door, it works the same way conceptually. So what happens is you'll be, it will give you instructions. I can send them out. So how to generate, right, an SSH key. And what it does is actually it generates, at least my understanding is it generates two parts, like a public key and a private key. Okay. So the public key, you can think of as like the lock.
It might be frozen again. It doesn't look like anything's changed.
All right, let me try it one more time. Do you see the word public key and private key? Yeah. And am I wrong now? Yeah, okay. So this is supposed to be a lock, all right, with a keyhole or something like that. All right, so this is what's public. Just like the same way that like on your door or on your locker or whatever, right? Everyone can touch and feel and like the lock, right? This is open to the public. What is not open to the public is the actual key. That's a key. All right, is the actual key that you put in your pocket. All right. So this is the private key. All right. So when you do the whole SSH key thing, when you generate a key, you're generating the pair. Just the same way when you go to the store to buy this thing, they give you the pair, right? You'll store the public key on GitHub. And then you'll hold on to the private key in your on your laptop. You won't even have to look at it, really. Like, and generally you won't. So when you then push to GitHub, it will, along with that, push the private key and make sure that it matches the public key that you added to GitHub. Okay? And that's how this thing is authenticating. All right, so the main thing is what you're doing is you're generating a pair, right? You're generating a public key and a private key. You will add to GitHub, right, the public key. Does it look like? Some random text is the public key. Also some random text is the private key. But those things, they're different, but one is the lock and one is the matching, one is the lock and one is the matching key that fits into it. All right, so you'll store the public key on GitHub, and the private key will be on your computer. And when you push or pull, right, basically you are authenticating that, hey, you're logging in essentially with your private key, just like your password, right? And saying, okay, that you are allowed to do this. All right, so that's the idea. In terms of how do you actually generate that thing, let me, I can just show you, the documentation is very good, and I don't feel like boring you too much with it. So you can start with this documentation. This is saying, look to see if an existing SSH key is present. So what is this doing? ls-al lists the files in a directory called SSH. Like, does that exist? For me, you can see I have these files already, right? And it's telling me this. Check the file names to see if you already have it. Otherwise, you can generate a new SSH key. So you can click here or go to the next step, right? So to generate a new SSH key, what do? Copy and paste this, but put in your email address, okay? And then you can see, here it is, generating the public-private key pair, right? So it's putting in both of these. Now enter a file in which to save it. You can just, I believe, press enter and it will store it. And then finally you add your SSH key to the SSH agent. The SSH agent is what is essentially holding your private key to give to GitHub. All right, so that's what's happening there. You can see it's like a program that's running. That's why it gets this process ID. And then there's this one other step, which is saying, basically when you go to GitHub, you can see, maybe I can show you this. I guess I don't have it on my computer. Let's just show you. So this is just a file. So if we go to cd /.ssh. So you can see I don't have actually this file that it asked you to have. So I can create a new one. That's fine. And you can see I now have this file called config. And I want to look at just this file. So this config file is basically saying, hey, you know, when you try to access GitHub, use this file to access GitHub. So you can just copy and paste this into your config file and say, okay, this is the file I want to use when you're like pushing or trying to access GitHub, right? Is this .ssh, you know, and then potentially, you know, the file that you're using, that you're referencing, okay, which holds your key. Add your private SSH key, private key to the SSH agent, right, and store the passphrase in your keychain. All right, so I'm not, again, like, I'd prefer you guys go through it. This is actually the more that I've ever gone through this stuff. And it also may vary a little bit based on Mac or Windows. But this is pretty good documentation. It also just is a little bit of elbow grease to get this thing up and running. All right, but I'll send this, and hopefully with your partner. All right. What should we do? So I will I'll let you all, you know,